we're going to go ahead and kick it off. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to today's session, The Path to Financial Confidence, a Roadmap for Youth and Young Adults. My name is Jackie Zimmerman. I'm the manager of public education partnerships and e-learning at Mental Health America, and I'll be helping to moderate today's session. Just a few notes for everyone before we get started. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed out to everyone within 1 week. We do not offer CEUs, but if you would like to request a certificate of attendance, I have a form for you to request one. I'll post that link in the chat here shortly, and it will also be included in your follow-up email if you can't access it out of the chat. We'll have some time at the end for questions with our lovely panelists and speakers today. So please feel free to utilize that chat as we're going through to post your questions. We'll be collecting them on the back end and have some time to review them with you all. As I said, as people were coming in, you'll notice that your cameras are off, your microphones are muted. They will stay that way throughout today's session. So just utilize that chat to provide resources, ask questions, and share. We want to thank our amazing partners at Citizens. This is the third webinar and final webinar in our 2024 series with them. We have kind of joined forces this last year to talk about the connection that mental health and finances have on each other, really that reciprocal role and all of those impacts. But each of the sessions we've done with Citizens all are independent. So if you missed the first two, it's okay. You can jump right in today. But they were really wonderful resources. So when we send that follow-up email, we'll be sure to link the first two sessions if you're interested and weren't able to join us for those, that you can jump in and watch those as well. Today, we're really going to be focusing on the lens of finances and mental health from the youth and young adult perspective. We're going to hear from Jackie at MHA about how financial stress is affecting young people, their mental health, their outlook on life, and their wellness. And then we will move into a discussion with Audrey from Junior Achievement and Jennifer from Citizens, where we can kind of talk more about that connection, what Jackie's discussing, and then provide you with some foundational tools and strategies for money management, some resources, and how to really have that good financial planning and wellness and financial literacy as you move into the next stages of life. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll hear first from Jackie, who is our manager of peer and youth advocacy at Mental Health America. Thank you so much for joining us, Jackie. We're so excited to learn and hear from you this morning.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. I have a few slides. And like my colleague Jackie Z mentioned, I'm just going to be doing some scene setting here for today's webinar and kind of explaining why we're having this conversation in the first place, why discuss mental health and finances together when we're talking about youth mental health. Again, I'm Jackie Menjivar. I'm the manager of peer and youth advocacy at MHA. Through my work, I get to work with a bunch of incredible young people from across the country, ages 15 to 25. So I'm hearing from a lot of young people every day in the work that I do. So putting together this presentation just to identify some of the challenges that we're hearing from young people that they're facing in this realm, explore the effects of financial stress on mental health, and highlight some practical strategies for support. So what are young people worried about? The answer is a lot, but more in focus, we'll look at some of the challenges that young people face when balancing their mental well-being with financial pressures. A lot of times these two things contribute to one another. They have a bi-directional relationship. You know, the more financial stress you face, the more you struggle with mental health and vice versa. So one of the things that folks are worried about is debt. Student loans, credit card debt, they're on the rise and creating this long-term anxiety for young people. It's always top of mind. Living costs, the cost of living, both in terms of rent, housing, and day-to-day needs like groceries, gas prices, those things are increasing, and young people are increasingly worried about being able to meet the demands of living. Uncertain employment. So young people are more and more increasingly relying on the gig economy and on these kind of alternative forms of employment that are less stable, less reliable than maybe traditional full-time employment. And even those traditional full-time roles are more difficult to acquire, and young people are really struggling with trying to find a stable job that they feel has long-term stability, especially when we're thinking about things like AI and automation and what the future of some of these careers might look like. There's a lot of uncertainty, so a lot of fear and anxiety comes there from being able to find and secure a job long term that'll be able to sustain you financially. Social pressures. I think we cannot underscore enough the impact that social media has on young people in general and their mental health in general, but also when it comes to finances. Social comparison is a huge issue that is only amplified due to social media. Young people are faced with things like FOMO, fear of missing out. They see their peers posting about vacations or new clothing or cars that they're purchasing. And that can lead to that kind of feeling of comparison and feeling like you have a lack. And that just amplifies any financial constraints that you might feel when you feel like those around you are succeeding when you might not be. And that also goes for those kind of big life milestones as well, which we know increasingly young people are delaying those milestones. There's a real fear of falling behind that can be associated with this. So finances are tied not just to the hard like living costs and those kind of tangible realities, but also that feeling of success and that feeling of self-esteem. Limited education. A lot of schools lack robust financial literacy programs. Young people are left unprepared for making these kinds of decisions, and increasingly young people are turning to the internet for resources, which, as we know, can both help and harm. Not all information we find online is reliable or empowering. So it's really easy for young people to fall into cycles of mis or disinformation when it comes to finances. So that's why it's more important than ever for us to be having these conversations and really trying to educate young people on what it means to have financial literacy and be empowered and in control of one's finances. Fewer than half of young adults ages 18 to 34 say they're completely financially independent from their parents. This is a stat from Pew Research Center from 2024 from this year. I think it's really important to recognize that young people's trajectories in life are looking really different than they might have a couple decades ago. And that a big source of that is that financial pressure and that financial strain that they're facing that maybe previous generations didn't feel quite in the same way. So something definitely to keep in mind as we're having these conversations. More specifically, how does this financial stress impact youth mental health? So when young people are asked what's contributing to their poor mental health, finances are consistently at the top of their lists. And we see this from a lot of different sources. More than half of young adults reported that financial worries and achievement pressure, what I was talking about before, that kind of social comparison, were negatively impacting their mental health. They perceive these as the top drivers of negative health in this survey. Low-income young adults were more likely to be anxious and depressed than higher-income young adults. And this comes from Harvard Graduate School of Education. Moreover, 50% of Gen Z and 47% of millennials, so again, about half, say that their long-term financial future contributes a lot to their feelings of anxiety and stress. This was, again, the most cited contributor to those feelings of anxiety and stress. This was only but next, day-to-day finances were the third most cited, only marginally, and when I say marginally, I mean a few percentage points lower than health and welfare of family when it comes to what's contributing to stress. So we know that finances are really, really at the top of the list when we're thinking about what is impacting both on a day-to-day. So let's recognize the ripple effects, right? We know that young people are saying that finances are stressing them out, that finances are contributing to negative mental health outcomes. So we need to think about the downstream effects of financial stress and how that can really shape young people's lives and their outcomes. One of those things, like I mentioned before, is delayed milestones. Young people are getting married and having children and owning homes at much older ages than previous generations before them. There's a lot of things that contribute to that. We can't just name financial stress as the sole kind of factor, but it definitely, I think, is one to consider. Self-doubt and low self-esteem. So often our financial situation is tied to our self-worth, for better or for worse. And that can lead to young people, especially feeling that kind of self-doubt and low self-esteem, again, compounded by social media, compounded by social comparison, and by the kind of, oversharing and clout culture that can kind of be prevalent online. It's really easy for young people to feel down on themselves because of what they might lack materially. That is kind of connected to isolation and feelings of exclusion. Sometimes young people might self-isolate. So say if a friend of theirs is having like an extravagant birthday party or like traveling abroad somewhere and inviting the group, a young person without that kind of financial ability might self-exclude, right? Might step away from some of those social gatherings, might not participate as fully as their peers, or even things like not being able to show up in the way that you want to, whether that's in your appearance or what have you. Finances and financial stress can contribute to that self-image and make folks want to kind of step away. And as a result, those social relationships suffer. Young people feel more loneliness. They feel more isolated. And as we know, loneliness is a huge driver of negative mental health outcomes. So that's something we really want to look at. Alternative educational and career choices. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but for folks who come from low income backgrounds, who have that kind of financial uncertainty, they're more likely to seek those lower cost, but at times less desirable educational and career choices, which can, inhibit their earning potential long term. It's hard if you're just struggling with day-to-day costs to really think about paying for a 4-year education or going into a career that doesn't necessarily guarantee a stable salary in the long term, right? And like I mentioned before, that reliance on the gig economy and the creator economy online. There's a lot of alternative paths that young people are seeking that at times can be lucrative, but also bring a lot of instability and a lot of uncertainty long term, which again just compounds that financial stress. And the longer term financial behaviors and cycles, we need to think of financial literacy and these financial stressors not as an individual problem or an individual failing. We have to think in terms of systems, in terms of cycles, right? A young person coming from a background where maybe their family wasn't provided the tools and skills necessary to have that kind of financial literacy, it's more likely that that young person will continue to sort of perpetuate that cycle. They're hard to break out of if you don't have something to disrupt that, right? I think about lived experience myself coming from an immigrant family. My parents came from a country where credit scores didn't exist, right? So how then does one come to learn these skills and learn these strategies to be able to do better for oneself and future generations, right? Like with mental health challenges, shame is often what keeps young people from seeking help or talking about financial difficulties or even just finances in general, financial concerns. I think that, like I mentioned before, it's really easy to fall into this trap of thinking that finances are solely a personal success or personal failing, and it can be really tied in those feelings of shame that leave you immobilized. That's why it's so important to be having more open and honest conversations about finances, especially with young people, and really trying to reshape that culture and fight against that stigma, right? We should be able to openly and honestly talk about finances because it's just a reality of our world. And the more we can acclimate young people to having these conversations, the better prepared and better equipped they can be moving on with their finances. So what can we do, right? These are all very real problems, but there are also very real solutions, which I'm very excited to talk to you about. So for one thing, we can integrate financial counseling into existing mental health supports. So I think about things like crisis lines and hotlines like 988. I feel like if you offer some kind of mental health support, be that in an educational setting or a community health setting, being able to integrate some, even if it's just referral, some sort of financial component or element to the services you provide can go a long way for helping support young people. Implementing financial literacy education that focuses on agency and empowerment. I think that A lot of financial literacy education kind of yesteryear focuses a lot on that sort of like restriction and discipline, right? Which are important. Discipline is important, but also I think there's a real opportunity for us to focus on that feeling of agency and empowerment and really letting young people feel not restricted, but empowered, right? To be able to manage their finances in a way that allows them to live the life that they want to live. So that kind of reframing, I think, can be really helpful when we're having these conversations. And finally, just creating safe spaces for youth to share financial and mental health struggles without judgment in the same way that we're fighting to eliminate stigma from mental health conversations. We should eliminate stigma from having conversations about finances, right? Whether that's just a question about like how taxes work or how credit scores work, to those more challenging and difficult conversations when it comes to like lacking and trying to figure out your future financially. Being a safe person for youth in your life to talk to about finances can go a really long way. So being able to have those conversations without judgment and share openly, I think is so crucial to changing the culture on this. If you're not sure how to start the conversation on mental health specifically, you can take or share a free online mental health screening from Mental Health America at screening.mhanational.org. These are free, confidential, they take just a couple minutes, and they can screen for some common mental health challenges and connect you to further resources and information. So if there's a young person in your life who you think might be struggling, please send them that way, because it's a really helpful starting point for anyone who's starting to question or kind of have concerns about where they're going with their mental health. And that's all I have to set the scene today. And with that, I'll pass it back over to my fellow speakers.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Just want to extend gratitude for that intro to us. You did a great job setting the scene of kind of where young people are at with their mental health and finances, what some of those biggest concerns are, what are some of the possible solutions. And that leads us perfectly into our next conversation, with Audrey joining us from Junior Achievement and Jennifer joining us from Citizens, where we're going to kind of dive into a couple of these topics a little bit deeper. And like I said earlier, feel free to put your questions in the chat for our speakers as we're going. If we have some time at the end, we'll explore some of those. But welcome, Jennifer and Audrey. Thanks so much for joining us for this conversation. After hearing from Jackie and those MHA insights on how finances are impacting young people's mental health, I'd just love to hear from each of you. Have you found similar or expanded findings in these areas of financial stress, concerns of paying for education, loans, job insecurity, increased costs of living, those types of things? And either one, you feel free to hop in.
Sure, I can jump in. Hi, everybody. So I'm joining you today from New York City. I lead our community development and financial empowerment efforts here in New York City, partnering with our local teams. And this conversation just really hits home for me, because our teams are out having conversations every day with young people across the city, and just hearing about what people might not know from like coming from a new to the U.S. Background, talking with their parents who may not have had formal financial empowerment. So the connection between mental health and financial knowledge, I think that is just so powerful. I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Audrey Heineson. I work at Junior Achievement. Happy to be here. Junior Achievement, it's a nonprofit organization. It's actually the world's largest organization that's really dedicated to educating students in grades K-12 and young adult. We focus on financial literacy, exactly what we're talking about here, work readiness, and entrepreneurship. So I work at the national office within the states. And so the work that I do really oversees the design and of our educational learning experiences. And I serve the 99 local areas across the United States. And so similar to what Jackie was saying, I mean, we're hearing this across the state. So I can, you know, reassure you, I guess, in some way that, yeah, this is a problem. This is an issue that we're facing, that, you know, there is a direct connect between financial literacy and, you know, this idea of the stresses of life. It's part of the puzzle. There's many pieces, I think, in which we can approach it. But that's something that we're tackling, at least from the junior achievements perspective, is how can we provide that financial literacy, that financial education, really starting at that younger age. So we build that confidence over time. So it's not like a one and done situation, but really build those foundational knowledge, skills, and competencies all the way up through high school. So you do feel empowered, you feel you do have that confidence to make choices in your life that will benefit you and lead you to economic success. So you know, absolutely what Jackie was saying, we're hearing that as well. And that definitely is our motivator. You know, we have a lot of work that we need to do. And so you know, that's what we're hoping to tackle here at Junior Achievement.
Absolutely. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you for all the work you and Junior Achievement are doing in these areas that we're talking about to help empower young people. And Jennifer, the same at Citizens. All of this work is so intertwined. And I think at first when we started having these conversations and this partnership, you know, it's a different topic for our audience. Of they're used to hearing from Mental Health America about traditional kind of mental health conditions, different things like that. But these topics are so intertwined. And they're really dependent on each other, especially with our young folks and how they're feeling about things. And I know that Citizens and Junior Achievement had a wonderful survey that you've all done with some really great findings that, as I was looking through, really align with a lot of what Jackie has shared from MHA. And so we'll be sure to include those survey results as well in your follow-up material so people can explore that a little more. I'd love to hear from you about what are you in each of your respective areas of work hearing from young people regarding the support that they need to achieve financial wellness? What are they looking for?
Well, I can jump in here. So actually, with the great funding from Citizens, so thank you, Citizens, we were able to do this research of 1,000 students to really see what was happening. Why are they stressed? What is really leading to that financial wellness? How do we get there? And what was interesting is 65% of those teens believed that how much they're going to make in the future is directly connected to their happiness. I don't know if that resonates with any of you here, but that was just, you know, there's a direct connect here to that. And then at the same time, they feel like their family situation, 74% of them said there's a barrier because I don't see possibility, perhaps. I don't see or have that hope or vision of how can I, you know, move from where I'm at now to where I would like to be. And so at the same time, you know, I think the overall like kind of consensus of it is we need and want more financial literacy. We want to know. And I think that was across the board. I think it was like 80% said, we want to learn. So I think there's this huge desire, but at the same time, you know, less than, I think 40% said that they had access to any kind of financial education. And they didn't necessarily have that in their immediate environment either, with any sort of, you know, adult advice around financial education. So there's a lot of work, I think, that we can do in terms of educating and providing that education. So that's really kind of where, you know, JA is coming in and seeing, you know, with it again with the support from various donors, like, you know, we need to provide and make, you know, that kind of education as accessible as possible.
I think from our experience with volunteering with Junior Achievement, our volunteers, we volunteer at Finance Park very regularly, which I love because Finance Park offers students an opportunity to do a virtual exercise in budgeting and planning for the future, sort of looking ahead 15 years to where am I, like sort of a model of where am I going to be when I have a career, I have a family. So I think for us that having the opportunity to have conversations with students, both where they are, where you are now as a student versus where you want to be, like that's I think really for me very impactful. Some of the conversations that I've had have included just talking about wanting to be able to take care of your family someday, wanting to be able to buy a house, and then we kind of back it up and talk about, well, how are we going to get there? Like what can your decisions now, how can that impact where you're going to be in 15 years? And Junior Achievement has been really wonderful as far as providing that tool for those conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think another question that comes up kind of with the concerns that young people are having regarding finances, what are some of the ways that they can start building this financial literacy and these personal finance skills? I know, Audrey, you mentioned like many don't have this formal class or in school. They might not be getting these resources in any formal ways. So where can they find these tools and start to explore that themselves if it's not available to them?
So we offer quite a few free resources. So if you Google, JA resource, let me just look up what the exact thing is, or we're going to share links out after. Um, so we have different resources that are available. And actually, I do want to find the link now because it's bothering me, but so we have this resource site, and it's organized by age group, so that if you're, in high school, there's resources there. Our resources are divided into our focus areas of financial literacy, work and career readiness, and entrepreneurship. So within those, you can learn about different topics. It could be anything from, debt, credit, how to invest, how to start a business. There's so many free resources on that site, which are really great. That also links over to another site called JA Connect. In that, there's all these different interactive videos that you can go through at your own pace. And at any point in time, you can go there and go through all of these different resources. And they take you, again, that's also topical, and also organized by where you're kind of at stage-wise in your school experience. And also, our colleagues in JA Canada, through the funding of Z Zurich, the Z Zurich Foundation, they actually built out this whole mental health literacy with financial literacy program. So I can share that resource with you too. But it really, addresses that directly. And I think the more that we can be transparent about that connection, and the more that we talk about it, I think that is really, really critical. So we do have free resources, and they have been designed specifically, and they've been vetted. So rest assured that they're good resources that you can trust. This day and age, that's really important for sure. And yeah, so we'll definitely share those with you. Can I actually address one of the comments? Someone was talking about empowerment, and I think this is a really really great topic of how do you foster empowerment? And I'm designing a program now really just focused on empowerment and what that looks like and how do you actually achieve it. And the truth is, empowerment is something that you kind of develop over your lifetime. It's not, something that you can just learn. However, empowerment can be that mindset that you have. And the mindset that you have towards your finances really make a big difference. So there's a couple things that we do in terms of creating kind of empowering curriculum. So one is including a growth mindset. And there's a lot of research on this that shows that having a growth mindset, which means that you believe that you can, change intellectually, that you can grow and change by learning, by putting some effort into your learning, and having that growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, meaning I can't learn anything new. I'm pretty much the way that I am. So just having that kind of switch of attitude to know like, hey, you know what, I can do that. And really having that understanding of your unlimited capacity to take things on, new things, to take on those challenges. When you see adversity or face adversity, you can move through it. And so in our learning experiences, we actually bake in that growth mindset into our experiences. So as Jennifer was saying in Finance Park, you can make a choice and then realize, oh, wow, like I just chose a job and I have 3 kids and a really fancy car and an expensive house, and I'm not making enough money, right? So what do you do at that point? You pivot, you figure out, and you address it directly. And you say, I need to then make different choices. So then go back and then do the simulation again and make different choices and see how you can create that financial stability, that financial awareness. And so, in that empowerment process, it's really understanding that, you have that ability. And then through that knowledge, through that practice, and developing those things and applying it, making mistakes, learning from them, moving forward, that whole process is so important and so critical to empowerment. So you can start that now. You can start that today. You can start making different choices. And through that, you start building that confidence and that understanding about how, your life is your life. And it is, you have that ability. And you're surrounded by others who will support you. And that's also part of our model too. And as Jennifer was saying, is that we bring in volunteers from the community because it shows, our students that, hey, even though you may or may not have a supportive community around you, like in your family perhaps, that there is that larger community that is there for you. So when Jennifer comes into the classroom or into the Finance Park, the students see that and they're like, wow, that's amazing. And that's a reciprocal also relationship. And I'm sure when Jennifer's volunteering too, it's meaningful for her, right? It's that sort of kind of relationships that we're looking to build too and create those kind of supportive spaces.
Yeah, thank you for that, Audrey. I think what I'm hearing is that empowerment is so powerful, but you're also providing that hope. And I think a lot of times in our younger generations, what they're feeling is just that despair, that kind of bleak outlook on their future. And if you're in that, you grow up in a situation where you are struggling financially, that's all you've known, that's all you've seen, it can feel like, how would I get out of this? And so providing them with the knowledge, the skills, that hope, that empowerment, that, there is another option for me. I can try to make some choices to get myself in another situation and, be built on by this community that's supportive. I love that perspective that you brought up too, of that there are other people there that are able to uplift individuals and young people to help show them, there's possibility and hope for their futures too, and that they can feel that self-empowerment. Thank you. That was really wonderful to hear.
I think just commenting on the financial empowerment idea, just the opportunity for you to put yourself in control of your own financial destiny by filling your toolbox with the resources that are available to you. When our team volunteers with our program, we have our community ambassador program. We use sort of basic modules that are publicly available from the government. So the materials are not specific to citizens, but we use them as the basis to start the conversation. The modules that we focus on the most, I would say, are budgeting. I saw a question in the chat talking about how would you recommend that youth and young adults best start managing your financing? I think that starting with a basic budgeting module is really a great start to take a look at how much money you have coming in every month versus how much you're spending, and just comparing it on paper. I mean, I like to use a pen and paper, or you could use, an Excel spreadsheet, just any way to have a hard look at the numbers of, what's coming in and what's coming out, and getting that basic concept of budgeting.
Absolutely. My last kind of main question for each of you, I know we've talked a lot about kind of community support, different ways that we can support and empower youth. But I have a feeling we have a lot of parents, caregivers, adults on the call here today who might be a caregiver to a young one, or be in a role where they can be a mentor to young people in their lives. So how can parents, caregivers, or adults kind of help teach and encourage this financial wellness for young people in their lives?
Sure, I could take that question. I have an 8-year-old, so starting those conversations with my little guy, right? For like, we've been talking about money all along, and sort of the concept of, things cost money. This is, if you want to work towards something, this is what you would need to do to get there. So I think just starting with really simple with, change, allowing like a child to have control over small expenditures, and thinking about, what would they like, but also thinking about how do you categorize wants, needs, and uh, short-term goals and long-term goals. So maybe breaking it down to, I would like to go to the store and buy something today, versus I would like to save for something that might cost more, and sort of getting children thinking about budgeting and cost from a very simple perspective.
Yeah, it's just Jennifer, I think Jennifer said, just to kind of continue that kind of line of thought. So at Junior Achievement, we understand that what happens in a person's home environment is really important. And so as part of our learning experiences, we also extend into that area, so that students bring something home to do, with their parent or caregiver, because, that really is, I think, again, part of, one part of the equation to really creating that financial wellness. And so I'm a parent as well. And I didn't talk about money at all in my family. Like, it was taboo. It's, you bring up anything about money, it's like, don't talk about it. And I think for me, my approach is to talk about it, foster really like open, honest communication within my family about money, because you have to demystify it and normalize it. And the way to do that is to talk about it. Just have those kind of regular conversations around, budgeting, like talk openly about that. And, I think if you're talking about it within your kind of core family, it helps kids see kind of the importance of financial literacy, and the importance of really kind of understanding it, because it is a core part of our existence. that is the truth. That is the society that we live in. So like be specific, talk about how money works, start breaking it down, talk about a budget, talk about, cost management, talk about credit. What does that mean? And really be specific, I think, about the tools, like what kind of tools that you can use, so that you can really kind of reach your financial outcomes that you're hoping to achieve. My kids are young, but I still, involve them in financial budgeting kind of things. And I do really kind of fun activities out of it. So for example, I really want to instill this idea of giving, of donating, and, you know, it's like it could be, 5 cents. And so you put it in a little thing and we make this little activity where, as we're donating at the end, we see how much we have in our donation can, our container. And then we as a family decide on how we're going to spend that, to make, to add to our house or whatever, however we want to spend it. So it's like, how do we create little fun activities to instill certain concepts? I think you can do that at various ages and make it fun. But I think as a parent, you really have to lead by example. That's so important. Like demonstrate good financial habits. And if you don't have those, start learning them because you can learn these now. It's never too late. It's never too late. I promise you. But if you do it now and do small incremental steps towards it, you can get there. If it's like $5, like instead of buying a coffee at, the coffee shop, maybe take that $5 and put it in a little savings. In a few months, that will grow. And then that will give you the confidence to know, like, wow, I can do that. Obviously, that's a very simple example. And there's many other ways in which you can like make it more advanced depending on where you're at in your financial literacy, career or not career, but your path. But in any case, like making, I think the family, at home as a parent or caregiver, just make it a safe space. Make it a safe space to ask any questions. you know let your kids be able to ask those questions. And I'm not saying as a parent I answer all of the questions. That's up to you. If you don't want to say like how much salary you're making or whatever, that's fine. But you can pivot and say, yeah, how much you make is important because you have things that you need to buy. So what are these things that you really need? What are the things that you really want? And make a chart. you know I think that like visualizing what your financial situation is, like really putting it down on paper, is so helpful. I know when I did that, particularly when I had to face my debt, my school debt in particular, putting it down and being very specific about, wow, okay, that's my debt, how am I going to tackle that? And then saying, being very specific and facing that. And that was a big fear of mine that I really had to put down on paper. And then I was able to overcome it. I mean, it took me many, many years, but I did it. And that made me feel much more confident, about, facing my finances. And, I had to learn a lot of this on my own. And I really wished I had junior achievement when I was a kid. Um, you know, but I guess now I work here, so I guess that's a good thing.
I have a module that we use a lot with youth that I'll be happy to circulate out. But it's called Designing Dreams, and it allows you to set your goals for the future, and it takes you through the steps, and that's sort of the concept of SMART goals. So a SMART goal is a goal that is specific. What is a concrete step toward your goal? Like you want to be very specific. I want to improve my math grade from a C to a B, or from a B to an A. Measurable, like how much, how many, so that you can commit to a number. I will commit to practicing 2 math worksheets per day and seek feedback from my math teacher. Attainable, is the goal realistic? What needs to happen first? So making sure that the goal is something that you actually can achieve. Relevant, does the goal really matter to you? Does it pertain to my life? Will it get me to where I want to go? and timely? Is it clear, and can it be achieved within a defined time period? So once you sort of outline the SMART goals that you want to achieve for your financial future, you can kind of lay out a plan for how you're going to get there. Sort of going back to starting with a budget, taking you through weighing your needs versus your wants, analyzing, is it worth it? Making your plan, and then getting there by limiting your expenses and managing pressures from, outside pressures from your peers or inside pressures from yourself. I mean, that will help you build your toolkit, and going back to the concept of the connection between mental health and financial health.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer, and Audrey. And those resources are great. I know people were asking in the chat, like, are there specific modules? Are there worksheets? Are there things like that? And between Junior Achievement and Citizens, they have so many great resources in those areas. So we'll be including all of that in your follow-up materials so that you're able to kind of look through them, figure out what would work best for you and your family or the young people in your life to kind of work through. Thank you so much for this wonderful discussion. I know we have a lot of questions in the chat and we have just a little under 15 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and answer some of your questions. Jennifer, Audrey, whoever wants to hop in for these, or if there's any more mental health related ones, Jackie, I invite you to share your perspective as well. I have a few questions coming through that we've noted. The first, a few questions have come through similar to this one. And Audrey, at Junior Achievement, you might have some perspective working in schools in this area, but someone had asked, how is the education involved, or should they be a part of this? So I just love to hear kind of each of your perspective. How can schools work to help empower? What does that look like? What role does that have? And for those who maybe don't have that piece of education in school, they can access where they can be accessing other resources.
I know that there's a slight trend across the states where states are now including financial literacy as part of their state standards. So I think that is a really good movement for the future, so that we can build into our system, our educational system, this really much needed financial literacy. If you don't have it in your school, I mean, you can always contact your local Junior Achievement office and get involved in that way, and bring Junior Achievement to your school, number one. That is a possibility. There's also a lot of other great organizations out there doing work similarly, depending on what your needs are. But again, we'll share some of our resources that are free and available now to you. But being able to create those kind of school district partnerships is so critical to our success, and see, how we can complement what's happening within our school system, so that we're really kind of filling in the gap and making sure that we're equipping our younger people with the skills and the knowledge and the ability and the mindset to be successful in their economic lives.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, Jennifer.
And we partner with largely high schools who have started to develop personal finance classes within their curriculum. So our community ambassador presentations are frequently sort of a complement to the curriculum that the high school is. So like they'll have a series of classes talking about personal finance, budgeting, credit, introduction to savings, and we'll come in as guest presenters to talk about those specific topics. And with Junior Achievement, actually in Staten Island on Friday, we're participating in the Career Speaker Series. So our colleagues are talking to students at a high school in Staten Island about careers in finance. And I believe that kind of goes across different different fields of expertise so that students have access via junior achievement to professionals in all sort of categories.
It's fantastic. Access is hard when it comes to these types of things, and most all of our children are in school. So being able to provide these resources within schools where they are, making that connection that you, both of your organizations are working alongside the schools to meet their needs is just fantastic. So thank you. I think Olivia had responded to this person. They had asked, they were with the Brooklyn Public Library, wanted to bring workshops to their branches. Absolutely. If you're interested in some of these things, I know Olivia had reached out to connect. So hopefully any folks that are looking for some specific resources from Citizens or Junior Achievement, we can help you get connected. Another question, thank you, Naya, for helping combine some of the questions in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. What kind of myths versus facts are you encountering when working with youth and young adults in the financial literacy space?
That's a good question. What are some of the myths and facts? Well, I think there's this myth that the more money you make, the more happiness you will have or achieve, or the more happier and fuller your life is going to be. But I'll speak for personally. I don't think that is the case. I think that financial wellness comes to really understanding what works well for you, and not spending more than what you are receiving, and this idea that money is flowing right throughout our communities, ourselves, our families. It's all around us, but the fact is, if you are conscious and mindful about it, that you can make these choices so that you can build wellness around it and live within your means, whatever that is. And even if you don't have a lot, and I've been in this situation myself, that does not equate to how I feel about myself and my ability to do things. I know that it can be discouraging, but it does not mean that that is what you're worth. It's not a one-to-one. And I think it's a hard concept to really understand. And particularly, when you're in your youth, like, you're still developing your rational brain, and it's like really emotional. So, kind of going back again as like the parent caregiver, it's like, it's not so much of like, it's what the rational idea around money, but it's the feeling of it. How can you emote that feeling of confidence, of that you can make those decisions? I know it's hard, but what are the concrete steps that you can take? Facing on your fears directly. What is it that is stressing you out about your finances? Is it your debt? Okay, well, then let's look at it. Let's address it directly and take those little small steps, towards feeling better about it. So I think there's a lot there, and I'm not a mental health specialist, but there is that real direct connection there. So I hope that at least in this webinar, like, it's a very clear takeaway of that you can do that. You can make that difference in your life, no matter how hard it may seem or feel. Look for resources. They're right there, and there's others around you that you may not know. So just start talking about it and saying, hey, I need help. I don't know how to do this. Do you know how to do this? Because the more that you talk about it, the more it could come to your conscious level, and the more that you can kind of create that community to really address these concerns. I mean, I'm reading the chat and there's some serious, concerns out there. I can't answer all of them. I wish I could. So are there people in your, somewhat immediate circle? And if you can't find them, maybe there's safe spaces online that you can connect and find those resources, those people that can help. Because I know there's a lot of people that want to help. I know. We're creating like a mentoring system too for that. Like we know we need to create those like support systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes back to one of Jackie's points too about that stigma and shame of it being hard to talk about it, but taking that leap of faith to say, I'm struggling, I need support, whether it's with my mental health or financially or both, can make all the difference of just letting it being known that it's something you're needing support with, and welcoming in those resources and welcoming in different opportunities that you might not have known about if you didn't ask for help. So thank you, Audrey. And yeah, Jennifer.
Just from a more from a perspective of working on the community facing area of the bank, like really, I feel really passionate about helping youth to build positive relationships with financial institutions, and to be able to take advantage of the resources that are available. Because our team who works in the retail network, they a lot of times are early career, and their lived experience is similar to the youth that they're speaking with. So giving our team the tools to educate and to help share their lived experience in a tangible way. And I think that that's one of our goals in community development, is to really help youth strengthen their ties to their own community and to help build trust relationships, to help strengthen their financial tools.
Absolutely. And it can make all the difference. I know that we're right at our time here, and our hours just flown by. And yes, with all the questions, we could keep talking all afternoon. And even with our 3 sessions at Citizens, we can keep going in these conversations. But I just want to give a huge thank you to Audrey and Jennifer for this great discussion, the last about 45 minutes, and for Jackie for sharing from the MHA side and setting it up for us. Thank you all. Thank you, Audrey and Jennifer, for the work you're doing in your communities and across the US to really help empower youth, help them feel like there is hope for their future, financially, personally, mentally, emotionally, that they can be successful. And that work means so much to us at MHA. So thank you. I also want to give a huge moment of gratitude for everyone joining us, for you sharing in the chat, for you providing your own stories, your own questions, sharing resources in there. It's always just so wonderful to be able to look and see the community in the chat that's happening. So thank you all for being here. I just have a few reminders. This is being recorded. I know some people had to leave and hop back. It's recorded, so you can go back and check out anything you've missed. We'll share that in the follow-up, along with all of the resources that Audrey and Jennifer had mentioned today, with some of those reports, with some of their direct resources, things that you can be using with the young people in your life. And so that will all be sent out to you within the week. And please feel free to share those things with your communities. Share it to other parents, other caregivers, other adults, people working in youth spaces that it could help benefit as well. Just a final thank you to Citizens, to Olivia, and our fantastic partnership that we've had this last year to help bring you this series, these resources. We are so grateful at MHA for Citizens and all the work that we've done together. A final thank you to everyone. We will be in touch in the next week with all of the follow-up, and just know that we are here to support you. Thank you all. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, speakers.